So I'm trying out this two-window sharing. So let me know if everyone sees this slide deck here and behind it the application. All right, so big picture. Our web editor is allows people who have the Evolv AI snippet placed on their website to compose, to build, to code the variants that they've already thought of, they've already approved, they've already designed, and they're ready to build those. Um, uh, the web editor also has a QA mode that helps you test your variants in different combinations and in an environment that's a little closer to your production environment. Once your variants are built in the web editor, you can then import them into the Evolv AI Manager, and that's where you can launch your optimization projects. So uh, today we're just going to look at the no-code tools and a brief intro into the code editor. Uh, Firstly, those no-code solutions, we have our visual editor. That's a pretty standard kind of WYSIWYG experience um, uh, where you can adjust the dis distinct styles of your individual variants. The next is the text-to-code generative AI capability, where you can describe the design of your variant. And this capability right now supports kind of all the styles that you can manage with the visual editor, plus some additional ones. Uh, and when we think about the kind of workflow one might take um, to get to the web editor, uh, we think about when in the ideation phase when you're coming up with all your different the possible changes you want to make and test. At that point, you're already describing your variants. And so by the time you get to the web editor and you're ready to implement those things, the idea in that workflow is that, hey, we can just take those variant descriptions we've already come up with, put them in, and then click generate variant to build them. And lastly, we have our code editor, which supports your CSS, SCSS, and JavaScript. And that's really for everything that the visual editor and text code can't handle. Um, and we'll get into some of the questions you can ask of your designs to know when it's appropriate for it to use a no-code tool or to have a developer support you in creating your specific designs. So just to kind of get a little more detailed into what kinds of changes these tools can support. Your visual editor is going to cover all of your typography styles, basic size and spacing attributes, um, backgrounds, images, borders, and changing content. So that's everything from your headlines to paragraphs, labels, things like that. And then your text to code, all of those things in the visual editor, plus uh, changing things like the display settings where you want to hide a component that's currently on the page, um, changing the destination of a link, um, uh, adding anchor links, relocating components, and adding basic components like buttons and links. Now, there are a few caveats here, and we'll get into those later. Um, and then your code editor, that's going to be for, um, when you have designs that need to adjust for different devices, if you're going to manipulate different interactive components, especially carousels. or showing data that you need to do some kind of API call with. These are certainly all of your advanced design changes where you would want to bring your developer in to support you. All right. So to get started with your no-code tools, uh, the concept of a component, and I'd say different organizations may call this thing something different, but here we're calling them components. They are how you are telling the system, the AI, what you want to target, and that when it creates code to manipulate the design, it knows where to apply those changes. And so underlying all of our websites is some form of HTML. Every company does it a little bit differently. Things become a little more standardized when you're using frameworks, as maybe say an e-commerce platform backed by Shopify. There's going to be more consistency from site to site. But the components are the references to these HTML elements. These are um, this is the bit that's actually changing. Uh, and right, so when you create a component, you're actually saying this component refers to this particular HTML element, and it uses a selector to define what that is. It's a standard way of referencing HTML and applying changes. And so once you've selected that component, then that's when you're able to use the visual editor or to use the text to code capability to uh, change the aspect of the design that you've identified with the component. So adding components, and I'll get to the demo here in just a moment, but you're using a tool to select the component from a preview of your website. You can use the visual editor to check to make sure you selected the right element. And then optionally, if you're having trouble selecting that right component, we have a menu that allows you to kind of choose from the hierarchy of your HTML. And this is where things begin to get a little bit more advanced. And so we have these kind of ancillary tools to help refine that without having to get into the weeds of the code. So let me show you how we do that. All right. Here we have T collection. And on the left, we are in edit mode right now. So this is where I can adjust all the style settings and code, and then QA mode. That's where when I'm ready to test these variants in combination with one another, I can switch to QA mode. But we'll leave that for another session. So in edit mode here, I have my context. These are all the places where I might expect to change some aspect of the design. Typically, they refer to page types. So your home page, your product listing pages, cart page, checkout steps, things like that. They can also be used to create a context or a place where you're going to change on a specific page or something globally. Things in the header or say, a support button here that appears across the site. And so I would create a global context so that the system knows if a visitor to my website matches the conditions for that context, they're going to see the appropriate variants. Um, uh, so to components now. The first component I'm going to create here is for this free shipping banner because I know I want to change the text or change the color of it. And so before I even get to the variant building, I'm going to think about, what are all the changes that I want to make and what are the the elements of the page that I want to target so that I can make those changes. So I'm going to use this inspect tool. I can capture it from here or initiate it from here. And then you'll see as I'm hovering over, um, I'm going to uh, uh, hover over these different elements. At times, the overlay state does get a little out of sync with the page behind it. Let's see if that adjusts. So I'm going to do some here real quick just to see if we can get us back on the right alignment. Bring that back up again. All right, get my inspect tool here. And all right, so now here I'm looking through these different elements and I want to target this free shipping banner down here. There's an H2 and an outer div, and that one seems to cover most of it. So I'm going to capture that div there and call it free shipping banner. All right. And then next, what I want to do is make another component for this for the link that this banner goes to, and not the banner itself, but for the link. And as I'm going over this, it may not be clear to me kind of where the anchor tag is, and I know that a link is triggered based on the URL that's on that anchor tag. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a long click on this on this area, and I'll see that hierarchy of the HTML. And so I can see, all right, there's the anchor tag. Now I can add that as the special event link. And now that component, I can use that to change the link, or I can change where it goes to, or change the text. And lastly, what I want to show is, or at least for adding these components, uh, is sometimes you want to create a component that matches uh, multiple instances on um, the page. For instance, let's see here. Just one second. All right, so uh, in this example, I want to create a component for the price, and we see that price appears on multiple instances here, and specifically, I want to create uh, a component for the sale price because I might want to make it more prominent by increasing the size or changing the color or also de-emphasizing the original price here that we see that's struck out. So when I'm using my inspect tool, I'm hovering over, I'm looking at the different elements here, and I see that there's a container around both the price and then there's a strike around the original price and the span for that sale price. If we look at at a product that doesn't have a sale price there, we see it has a different container around it. So I'm going to create a component here for the original price, and then another one for the sale price. Now, by default, when you're creating a component, it's going to select just that instance of what you clicked on. And so to expand the scope of that component, you can then come over to your you can edit the selector. Remember, that's how the system knows which element you want to target. You can edit that. And here's where you can change that selector by making it less specific. Now, this is something that I'd say, given this tool, it's uh, you can try removing certain aspects of that selector until you see the tool highlight the things you expect. Um, uh, this is where it does get a little technical, but I feel like at this point we're just editing this selector, and so you can play around with it until you see it highlight what you expect. So now we see that the sale price is all selected there, and for the original price, I also want to expand that to match all instances. There we go. And a little later, I'm going to come back and I'll show you how we edit these things, which let's get to next. Any questions about creating components before I go on? Cool. All right.
I do have a question.
Please. Yeah.
Everything is like the units are all like pixels and everything is in pixels. Is that accurate, or can we change it to some other um, measurement methods like EMs or?
Uh, I I think right now it'll only work with pixels. Uh, Brian Norman, have you tried using it with M's before?
Typically, if I've had to do that, I will use the generative AI feature, so you can give it a specific EM or REM
Okay.
Oh, I see.
measurement.
Got it. So not in the visualizer. Thanks.
Yeah. But Will, let's take a note of that to add that to our backlog.
Sounds good.
All right. So, yep, going on here. Oh, I should also note that when you're creating components, they are saved at this context level, which means that any variant that I create inside of a context or that I, implement for a certain page, I'm going to be able to use that component again across those different variants. Yeah. All right. So naming components by default, when you first select a component, it will use it will reference the HTML element name. But once we when we start when you look at the text to code, it's going to be important that you're naming your components in a recognizable way, in a way that's going to make sense when you describe the change. And also in a way that's going to make sense to other people who are coming in uh, to look at the design in the web editor, maybe change the code. It's just going to be a best practice to be both familiar and specific. Um, so some bad examples here. Just referring to this as the name might not be sufficient enough if when we think of like a product detail page, you have your main product name, but then you have your related products. And in your related product list, you're going to have other product names. And so if you're changing aspects of those related products as well as an aspect of your main product on the page, you want to be sure that your component names are specific to those different uses of a product name. If there are if you're referring to a to an option, a list of options, and your product has multiple options there. You want to be specific about which options you're referring to. Um, and and also elements of the design that change based on interactions. Referring to this as a green button wouldn't be best because this button is actually gray by default. The user has to select their size to enable the add to bag button. And so it may not always be obvious to someone who's coming to look at this design and it isn't familiar with that interaction. Um, so referring to it as the add to bag button is going to be a better choice there. Um, and it might also be, again, like with the name, there may be other green buttons on the page. And so the specificity there is important. All right. So um, that's the kind of intro into components. Again, this is how the system knows which elements of the code to target and apply changes. In the visual editor, your style palettes um, will look like this. They're going to cover your typography changes, sizing, spacing, your backgrounds, images. Um, and in the visual editor here, we do have Gen AI capabilities for generating text variations as well as image variations. I'll show you the I guess the first example here. Well, yeah, I'll go and show that one first. So here I've generated variations of this description here, and maybe I want to test some other kind of text that might resonate more with my customers. And I want to use AI to help me think of those different options. It can take several seconds for the variations to come back, and so I've preloaded them here. But once those results come back, you can adjust the sentiment. You can adjust the clarity and different tones of voice in that text. When you first generate it, it's determining what the current kind of settings are for the current text, and then you can adjust that from the what is essentially the initial prompt there. Um, so yeah, that's our uh, text capability. The next one I want to show you is just how it looks when we start changing um, some of the typography. And so I've created that original price here, and I want to actually make that less prominent. And so I'm going to use my color selector here, and I'm going to go with the lighter gray, and one that also helped differentiate it from the non-sale items. And then I'm going to switch over to my sale price. And I want to make that larger, so bump that up to 18. Um, so yeah, pretty simple to do here. I should also point out that the changes I'm making here are actually to the control experience. I haven't yet created a variable. So I want to do that for you real quick. So we're going to call this sale price, um, size, and contrast. Then create a variant here. Just call this variant 2 for the time being. Because here I know I want to use my the visual editor to make these changes. So I'm gonna find that example again. Here we go. Um,
I think
so
control is still edited.
yep. Here's a demonstration of how you reset your style changes. Um, totally planned for that. When you have made a change to a component, it'll be highlighted in orange here. You can just reset that value. So now I've reset that for control. I want to go into my variant, and then here I'll make those changes again. So my light gray, and then select my sale price, and I want to make that size bigger. Cool. So now I've made that change for this variant. If I compare it to the control, that's the control and the variant. And if I want, I can clone this and make some other variation based off of the changes I made there. Um, and yeah, so the next example I want to show is changing images. So for this one, I'm going to create a component. Um, go back to my PLP here. To that top level, I'm going to create a component for this hero image here. I'm going to call it the fall edit hero. Um, now, something I notice when I go between mobile and desktop is there's actually a different image there. And so what I want to do when I change this image is I want to make sure I change it on both desktop and mobile. When I look at um, the selector for the fall edit hero image, I see that it says desktop. So that tells me that there's likely another that this isn't going to affect um, mobile, and so I'm going to rename this so it's a little more specific. Call it the desktop fall edit hero image, and then I'm going to create another one for the mobile fall edit hero image. All right, and if I check that selector, I see that that's also the mobile. It has the mobile selector there. So to update that image, I'm going to come down here to the image settings, and I'm going to choose my image. This is for the mobile. All right, easy to make that change. And now I'm gonna switch back to my desktop. And let's make that change as well. So that's the mobile. This is the desktop. Great. Again, I made that change at the context level, but you can make the same change when you're making a variable invariant for it as well. Right. Any questions about those examples?
I'll do a quick just review, sort of thing by thing of what the visual editor has there as far as elements go. I know we talked an overview of it, but maybe just calling them out specifically.
Yeah. So your text here, this is it's going to show text when you select. So we'll call this the PLP headline. Um, uh, Elements that have text will show the text here. There are some cases where I believe um, uh, if you selected an element that doesn't have that isn't kind of a text-based element, then you're going to uh, you won't be able to change the text on it, and it'll need to be like a headline element or a paragraph or a span. get into sizing, spacing, your margin and padding, background settings. Some of these have to do with the background images. Otherwise, you're just changing your background colors in a lot of cases, and then your image and border. And so different border styles, etc. All right. So moving on to our text-to-code examples here. So again, all those changes that you see in the visual editor, as well as changing the some additional kind of basic changes. Our first, we'll go to the let's say in this case. I didn't want to change, I didn't want to test different images. I just want to test hiding the hero image on this PLP. The idea behind that is if I remove the hero image, that the products listed below are going to be higher up and above the fold. And that can be a good thing for getting people to progress down your funnel. So let's call this hero image presence. And we'll create a variant for that. That is um, hide the desktop and mobile hero image. All right. So because I have the desktop and the mobile hero image, the component's already created here. I've named my variant with a description of that change. I can come over here and click generate variant, and I should expect to see that your image to disappear. There we go. And we'll just check the mobile. There we go. And what's actually happened here is the AI has has generated code. And so for your developers, if they need to troubleshoot something, they can come in and look at the JavaScript and see the changes that were made. All right. So that's pretty handy. The next, let's take a look at how we move something on the page. So we're going to go to our PDP here. And in this case, I want to test moving this promo text here above the price, so that we're connecting those red colors together, and also tying that message to the thing it's referring to. So I'm going to create this a component for the product price. And I'm going to create another one for this called the promo teaser. All right. So to test that, or to implement this, the change of moving that up there, I'm going to create this location of promo teaser and add a variant that is, call it promo teaser above the price. I'll say product price to be a little more specific. All right. Now, the reason I created both both components there, one, a component for the thing that I want to move, but then the product price component, because I need to relate the location to something else on the page. If I wanted to move that promo to next to the logo, I would need to create a component that represents the logo. So I can say move the message to the left or right of that logo. So when moving items, you need to create that component for its destination, whether it's going to be above, below, left, or right of it, um, uh, depending on your particular design. And last here, I want to change the destination of this banner. Let's say I have the page that this goes to um, is one version, but I've my marketing team is designing a separate landing page, and I want users to I want to test like a split test on that on where that link goes. I can change the destination of the link here by uh, coming to um, this and because this change is global, it's going to affect all across the website. I want to come to my global context here and create a variable that is special event LP. We'll just call it special event banner link destination. Nope. If you need to delete anything you've created here, just right click on the item and you can delete that. Create that variant. And for this one, I'm going to say link to, all right, let's refer to the component. We'll call it component I haven't created yet. So here, I'm going to create that component. We'll call it the special event banner link. Now, I can call this special event banner link goes to, and then I can just put in my URL there. And let's say it's V2 of the select styles page. We see that description over here. I can create that, I can add that description here, or I can customize it over here when like I can give it a shorter name for the label here and then describe it in more detail here on the right. Generate variant. Great. So we can see here in the code, now that's going to the URL that I gave it. And when I click here, it's going to go to that page. Not a real page, but to illustrate the point, it's now this variant. When I click on that link, it'll take me somewhere else to that URL that I specified. Now, we do have an alternate way of doing this URL split test that I'll show you real quick. The kind of use for it is when say you're driving traffic from a ad campaign and they're coming to a landing page. We have the ability to do URL redirects. So if a user hits that landing page, we can test sending them to a different page. And to do that, let's say create another variable here. Let's call it the NLP split test. Come in here, and this is where I can add a redirect variant and go to LP2. And here I can just provide that domain or and URL there, include any query parameters if they're coming, from a social ad campaign where there's additional criteria in that URL, and then you can set up your variant that way. So this is the one exception to all of our no code and encoding tools. So just a little helpful thing there. Any questions about the Gen AI capability? I realize we're getting close to our time here. I'm going to go ahead and so that's the demo pieces. Again, description best practices. You want to be specific about the thing you're changing. Refer to those component names. If the AI isn't coming back with what you expect, it may be that you haven't used the right reference to that component name. Check your spelling even. Um, be sure you're clear about the change you want to make, and also use specific values. So ask your designers for any hex code that goes along with a particular change, um, and be sure to include that so the AI knows how to make the change. The AI isn't able to do everything, and even with basic changes, there are some things that can complicate those. Um, the nature of the complexity of the HTML you're trying to change can make it difficult to apply the changes to everything you expect. A good example here is in this design, the dollar sign and the number are in separate elements. And so to um, target those with a component, you might need to create two components, or you might need to get a developer to create a special selector that helps you target both of these things. Say if you want to increase the font size of both, or change the color of both of these elements of this particular design. Uh, uh, the next is responsive designs, and we kind of saw that example earlier. There's both desktop and mobile designs that I need to change, and so I had the opportunity to do that with different components this time, but there may be other instances where um, they may share the same class, and you need to use media queries to target those things. That's going to be another time where a developer is going to need to come support. Um, some sites have dynamic selectors based on the release, on the latest release. And so if when you create a component and it has a selector that references one of those dynamic selectors, uh, if you launch that test and your website gets a new release, there's a chance that variant is going to break because now the reference to it no longer exists. Um, and changing multiple instances, this again, where we saw that example, you'll have to manipulate that selector in order to target all of the pieces of the design you want. So yeah, this is where your code editor comes into. I'm not going to go through any examples here, but um, uh, we have a couple of ways that we make it easier for developers to make the changes that they need to. We have separate CSS and JavaScript blocks. We have timing controls, but we also have the ability to run code at a level that can apply to multiple variants or across projects. And so our help center has information on using your context or integrations to run that code. And yeah, so some of the I think, but before you get into, you're coming to the web editor, you have a description of all your designs, and you're wondering which tool should I use first. This list of questions here is really kind of a useful checklist to see whether or not your design needs a developer. Probably the most obvious is if those changes that we saw in that list before, if you want to make something a change and it doesn't exist in that list, then you're going to need to use a developer. If you're adding um, a new element or feature to the page. Maybe it's like a new tab section, or you want to take existing content and put it into a into a table or tab structure. That's going to be something that you would need to get a developer involved with. Adding things like buttons or links are most likely possible with AI. But again, the clarity in your description is going to make the difference there. Um, Different designs for different devices. That'll be another case. And a developer might need to do things that target changes to specific audiences. That's all kind of outside of the editing capability there. Changing the behavior or an aspect of an interactive feature. Carousels is kind of the main culprit in a lot of those kinds of changes, and especially when your features use a third-party library to implement them. Um, that's again a developer need, and showing any data that doesn't currently exist on the page. Anytime you're going to need to make some kind of API call to get information from a product catalog or a user profile, that'll be another time to get a developer involved. And I think the thing to realize is even what might sound like a simple change or might be a simple change, uh, if it kind of runs into these scenarios, you're still going to need that developer to help you do it. And the last idea here is that sometimes you might have a big idea that is more or less a redesign of a particular widget or maybe an entire page. This is where we would encourage you to lean into continuous optimization and break that big idea, break that big redesign down into smaller independent design changes. That's going to mean that you have you're more likely to be able to use the no-code solutions to build those smaller parts, and then kind of create individual tests for those, and let the AI find the right combination. So our little graphic here is illustrating how we can have all these separate tests going on, and the AI is finding different combinations of those that are working better for your audience. There's the efficiency of that means you might be able to rely less on developers to implement these changes, which means you can get them faster to production faster. And you're also going to learn about kind of which aspects are really making the difference for your audience. When testing those big redesigns, you may be missing out on what's pulling your performance down and what's really boosting your performance there. Um, and it reduces the risk for that big bet. You're spending a lot of time working on a single redesign and putting it out there by breaking it down. You can really you can reduce that risk by making more smaller bets. Uh, so yeah, that concludes it. Any any questions before we wrap up? Great. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time and attention. If you want to learn more uh, about the web editor and the other capabilities like QA mode, or if your developers need strategies for managing code through the web editor, we are always happy to help. And we do have guides in our help center to walk you through some of those common use cases. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Take care.